My name is David Daniel Ball, and this is from the desk of Andrew Bolt. The article, "The School Israel Didn't Shell." Every Israeli operation to defend itself has one, and the bombed school was the Jenin massacre, or the bombed ambulance hoax of Israel's operation this past month in Gaza. In early January, Israel was once again accused of a horrific war crime, an allegation that ran and ran. Some examples from Britain's The Independent: massacre of innocents as UN school is shelled. From The Australian: the death of 42 people in an Israeli attack at a UN-run school in Gaza overnight has finally forced Barack Obama to break his silence over the conflict. From The Age: the 43 Palestinians in a UN school were killed by Israeli shelling. From Iran: the UN High Commissioner for Rights has also called for independent investigations into possible war crimes after Israel's shelling of a UN school compound, which killed 42 people. From India: Israeli tank shells killed more than 40 Palestinians on Tuesday at a UN school where civilians had taken shelter, in carnage likely to boost international pressure on Israel to halt a Gaza offensive. The key ingredient in this latest proof of Israel's depravity, 43 dead, school attacked, sheltering civilians massacred, and with no good cause, the United Nations on Wednesday denied Israeli army allegations that militants were inside a school in Gaza that was hit the previous day by an Israeli strike, killing at least 42 people. Now, for the facts of that January the 6th mortar shelling of the Ibn Rushd preparatory school for boys run by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, yes, the 43 people are dead, and that is a tragedy, given that many were undoubtedly innocent. But the rest of the allegations? False, false, and false. Yet again, the media has brought anti-Israeli propaganda, as a Toronto Globe and Mail investigation has found. Physical evidence and interviews with several eyewitnesses, including a teacher who was in the schoolyard at the time of the shelling, make it clear. While a few people were injured from shrapnel landing inside the white and blue walled UNRWA compound, no one in the compound was killed. The 43 people who died in the incident were all outside on the street where all 3 mortar shells landed. While the killing of 43 civilians on the street may itself be grounds for investigation, it falls short of the act of shooting into a schoolyard crowded with refugee seekers. The teacher, who refused to give his name because he said UNRWA had told the staff not to talk to the news media, was adamant. Inside the compound, there were 12 injured, but there were no dead. Hazem Balusha, who runs as an auto body shop across the street from the UNRWA school, was down the street, just out of range of the shrapnel, when the 3 shells hit. He showed a reporter where they landed, one to the right of his shop, one to the left, and one right in front. UNRWA itself now openly concedes its school was not actually shelled. John Ging, UNRWA's operations director in Gaza, acknowledged in an interview this week that all 3 Israeli mortar shells landed outside the school and that no one was killed in the school. The Israelis are the ones, he said, who got everyone thinking the deaths occurred inside the school. Look at my statements, he said. I never said anyone was killed in the school. Our officials never made any such allegation. But the Globe and Mail recalls an earlier Ging quote. Speaking from the Shifa hospital in Gaza City as the bodies were being brought in that night, an emotional Mr. Ging did say, "Those in the school were all families seeking refuge. There's nowhere safe in Gaza." And a World Health Organization report. On the 6th of January, 42 people were killed following an attack on a UNRWA school. And a UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs weekly report said, Israeli shelling directly hit 2 UNRWA schools, including this one. So why did Israel lob those 3 mortar shells into a street outside the school? As Associated Press reported at the time, in a statement the Israeli army said an initial investigation found that mortar shells were fired from within the school at IDF soldiers. The force responded with mortars at the source of fire. The Hamas cynically uses civilians as human shields. The army said 2 Hamas militants, Ahmed Abu Askar and Hassan Abu Askar, were among the dead. 2 neighborhood residents confirmed the Israeli count, saying a group of militants fired mortars from a street near the school, then fled into a crowd of people in the streets. Israel then opened fire. The residents who spoke on condition of anonymity because they feared for their safety said the Abu Askar brothers were known low-level Hamas militants. Within is not right, of course, but it seems the real story is that 43 people, including at least 2 Hamas militants, were killed when Israel returned fire from Hamas mortars launched from among a crowd in the street. You might not like what occurred, but it is very, very different to what was so widely alleged and far more forgivable. And after the earlier evidence of the media repeating pro-Hamas propaganda and gross exaggerations of the death toll in Gaza, especially among civilians, we need to ask again, how much can we trust the coverage of journalists and welfare groups reporting from territory run by terrorists? And in another article from Andrew Bolt, Go Tell It to Them, I'm very happy to be told by Islamist apologists here that jihad means a spiritual struggle. I just wish they'd go tell some of the hundreds of thousands of Indonesians referred to in this survey. A recent survey conducted by the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University UIN Institute for the Study of Religion and Culture revealed Thursday that although the majority of mosque leaders in Jakarta are still moderate-leaning, the survey also shows that 26% agree that war is the main form of jihad, striving in the way of God, while 20% support the formalization of Sharia law.